Jail time for criticizing Islam? That is what we're talking about on today's Newsmakers. I'm joined by Raj Nair, and we break down the story of a Catholic priest in Spain who reportedly is on trial and could face jail time after criticizing the Muslim faith. Here is Raj Nair.
A Catholic priest in Spain, Father Custodio Ballester, is facing real jail time after he was found guilty of making Islamophobic comments. CBN's Billy Hallowell joins us now. What's going on here, Billy?
Yeah, this case is wild. I mean, obviously, you just detailed the fact that this particular priest is facing, as far as we know, up to 3 years in prison over this. And this is all based on Spain's hate speech legislation. It's Article 510 of the Spanish Penal Code, which basically makes it a criminal offense if you have any sort of public expression that they would say would incite hatred or discrimination or hostility or violence against individuals or groups. And obviously, those individuals or groups based on religion, race, ethnicity, nationality, sexual orientation, gender identity, I'm reading the list here, illness or disability. The issue you have is who identifies what is violence, what is hatred, right? You have a priest here who did an online interview, from what we understand, and also, made a proclamation in 2016 and 2017 warning, his perspective on Islam being sort of incompatible with having dialogue and a debate. Other warnings that he issued, these were his opinions, and they were faith-based opinions. And so, if you don't like what somebody is saying, the challenge with this is that this penal code basically is very wide open, which means you could say, well, Raj, what you said is wrong, and I'm going to bring you up on charges. And it feels like, unless there's something else we're missing here, that's what's happening here. You have a priest who said things that people don't like, and he is now being held out to dry and facing prison time for it, which is just incredibly wild.
It's insane. This is absolutely insane. Spain, if you're watching this, people in Madrid that make decisions, this is insane. You were talking about his comments. He wasn't saying, let's go hurt people that are Muslim. Let's go burn their houses down. So he was just basically stating sort of like a geopolitical understanding of the theology and the outworkings of Islam. Under those rigid understandings, they're not even rigid, they're just very vague. I mean, you'd have to arrest tens of millions of Americans who make very similar comments. But, he actually made a comment, Ballester, that is, to the Catholic news agency. And he said, quote, "The survival of freedom of expression in today's Spain depends on the ruling in this case. Otherwise, we'll be headed towards a new Cuban dictatorship, one where you were arrested for what you said as well as what you thought." As I was thinking about this, Billy, the stories that you and I cover nowadays, brother, it's just George Orwell is the only one that I can think of that's speaking, helping us make sense of this. And George Orwell famously said, "If liberty means anything at all, it means the right to tell people what they don't want to hear." And so, this isn't uncommon in Europe. And we're seeing, I can't confirm these reports, but Joe Rogan mentioned on his podcast the other day that 12,000 people have been arrested in the UK for posts, for saying things. And it's like, good night. What are we doing? I mean, you are being arrested for liking comments, for making comments, for sharing your opinions. I mean, this is the bedrock foundation of Western society. And again, from what we can tell, from what we see, he didn't make anything that was hateful or, inciting violence. He was just stating, this is what I think about Islam. And the fact that could end up in 3 years in prison is absolute insanity. We will obviously be following this case, but this is not an isolated incident in Europe. Man, we need to be praying for moral clarity, for courage, for a backbone for our friends on the other side of the pond, because something really sinister is happening in Western Europe, where you're not even allowed to communicate your opinions anymore without the threat of being arrested. It's wild. I'll give you the last word, my friend.
Yeah, look, we've got, even if you want to try to dismiss this case, you've got Pavia Razinen, who I've brought up a number of times as we've had these discussions. She's a member of parliament up on charges in her third legal battle right now at the Supreme Court of Finland over tweeting Bible verses from Romans about traditional marriage. She's being held out to dry for that, which is basically criminalizing the Bible. That's in Finland. You've had people being arrested in the UK for praying outside of abortion clinics. And just to give you a sense of one of the things that apparently landed Ballester, the guy in this story, in trouble, the priest, he had written this thing called The Impossible Dialogue with Islam. It was an article in 2016. He was responding to a cardinal there in Barcelona who was calling for renewed Christian and Muslim dialogue. What Ballester said was that he felt this was impossible, as a lot of Muslim majority countries, persecute Christians. And in his view, that this sort of dialogue was made impossible by certain Muslim factions. So that's his opinion. That's one perspective. He wasn't calling for violence from what we've seen or anything like that. But yet again, the danger here, and Americans pay close attention to this, because what is happening in these other countries is a test. And if that test passes and these things are allowed to happen, those same things could come to America. It sounds crazy, but there were people in the UK and in Finland and other places who thought this would never happen, and in Barcelona who probably thought this would never happen. And here we are with this insane case. That's all for today's Newsmakers. Make sure you head on over to the CBN News YouTube channel and cbnnews.com for more of the news you need to read. We'll see you again tomorrow.